Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're embarking on a really remarkable exploration of Bella Coma. The Sufi in Me is the Sufi in You by Natalia Mihai.
Mhm.
Based on the sources you, our listener, shared, this isn't just a travelogue, It's a deeply personal memoir woven into the fabric of two pretty significant long-distance walks. The Camino de Santiago in Spain, which many know, and then the more solitary Sufi trail in Turkey.
Right.
Our mission today is to really get to the heart of these journeys, to understand the key insights Natalia gained, and, well, to connect with the fundamental human experiences that underpin these incredible adventures.
Yeah, and what's truly compelling about Natalia's book and the excerpts you provided is like how she seamlessly blends her own life story with the narrative of these physical and spiritual treks.
Mm-hmm.
We see her early years in Romania, the pivotal moment of her family's immigration to Canada, and then this powerful yearning that draws her to these long walks across Europe. It's a rich tapestry, really, where her personal history deeply informs her journey on these trails.
Absolutely. And for you, the learner, this deep dive is designed to give you a real sense of these experiences without having to, you know, lace up your own hiking boots for thousands of kilometers.
Right.
We'll be focusing on the moments that make you think, the surprising turns, and just the sheer resilience of the human spirit that really shines through Natalia's writing. We want to extract the core insights for you in an engaging way.
Okay.
So let's start at the beginning and look at Natalia's early life and the formative experiences that kind of shaped her path.
Well, Natalia's very entry into the world seems significant. Born on December 29th, she apparently arrived with a full head of hair
Wow.
and was given the name Natalia, which fittingly means Christmas Day. She grew up in a large family, 9 children in total, a fact she acknowledges with the phrase mashallah, which is a beautiful expression meaning God has willed it.
In her early childhood, it sounds like something out of a dream, really, spent on her grandparents' farm in the Romanian countryside.
Yeah.
Imagine orchards bursting with fruit, vineyards, cooking corn over an open fire. These vivid sensory details, they really paint a picture of a deep connection to the natural world and a cherished upbringing with her mamaya and tataya. It feels like those early experiences, that freedom, that connection to land, must have been deeply ingrained.
Oh, they certainly seem foundational. But it's also crucial to understand the backdrop against which this idyllic childhood unfolded.
Mm.
As an evangelical Christian family in a predominantly Catholic Orthodox Romania under the communist regime, they faced, ongoing scrutiny and pressure from the state.
Yeah.
This context of quiet resistance and holding on to their beliefs in a challenging environment, it likely instilled a certain inner strength.
That's a powerful point. And Natalia's father emerges as this incredibly determined figure. It took him an entire year, a whole year of persistent effort to navigate the complex bureaucracy and secure the necessary immigration papers for the family.
Right.
The book highlights the need for secrecy and an unwavering tenacity during this period, qualities we kind of see reflected in Natalia's own determination later in life, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. That year-long struggle, it speaks volumes about the family's commitment to a different future. And their departure from Romania was, well, quite dramatic. A clandestine exit, no farewells, taking only the bare essentials. Her parents, 4 siblings, 3 rugs, and get this, a single bag of Valencia oranges.
Wow, just oranges.
Yeah. Their journey involved a night train to Vienna and then 6 months spent in the Traiskirchen Refugee Center in Austria, waiting for sponsorship to Canada. Imagine the mix of uncertainty and hope during that time.
That's such a huge upheaval for a young family. But they eventually found their way to Windsor, Ontario, in August 1978, and Natalia's recollections of growing up in Canada are so evocative. She remembers the biting cold of winter, the vibrant resurgence of spring, those classic Canadian summers.
Uh-huh. Watermelon and corn?
Exactly. Watermelon and corn. Anyone who grew up here can probably picture those quarter freezies from Max Milk. These seemingly small details, they really bring her story to life.
They do. These shared cultural touchstones create an immediate connection. The games they played, metal street skates, baseball, soccer, jump rope, and the way the family immersed themselves in learning English by watching television.
Oh, yeah. What shows?
Shows like Rocky, Fantasy Island, The Love Boat, Starsky and Hutch, The Jeffersons. It's a real snapshot of a particular time and experience.
Totally. She describes herself as an average student academically, but she really thrived in sports, which kind of underscores her competitive spirit. But a really pivotal moment came in 4th grade with the seemingly simple act of building cardboard forts for silent reading.
Oh, yeah.
That experience ignited a lifelong passion for books and cemented her aspiration to become an author. I read, therefore I am, she puts it. It really highlights the power of those early, seemingly small experiences.
It truly does.
Yeah.
And her early exposure to National Geographic magazines clearly planted a seed of wanderlust, right? A deep longing for adventure in those exotic places she saw in the photos.
Yeah.
Even her involvement in Army cadets later on seems like it was an outlet for that free spirit and her competitive nature, maybe offering a structured way to explore those impulses.
It's fascinating to trace these early threads, the love of reading, the pull towards adventure, that underlying resilience forged in challenging circumstances, all starting to weave together. After high school, she describes a period of, well, less direction before finding her way to studying print journalism, driven by a desire to travel and report like Barbara Walters.
That journalism program sounds incredibly rigorous. Apparently only a small percentage of students actually graduated.
Wow.
And while she did get a job in the field, the reality of it quickly fell short of her aspirations. Involved some uh, rather unexpected assignments, like a hot dog cart opening or a dispute over a peacock.
Oh dear. Not quite Barbara Walters then.
Not quite. Makes you think about how life often takes us down unexpected paths before we find our true calling.
Exactly. Then came a move to North Vancouver, where she worked as a waitress and a school photographer. But it sounds like the desire for something more, something truly adventurous, was always simmering beneath the surface.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to have manifested when she landed what she calls her literal dream job as an onboard photographer for Princess Cruise Line,
Ah.
even embracing a full pirate persona. Ah, matey, your life or your wife. You can just picture that.
That image of her as a pirate photographer is certainly striking. It speaks to a willingness to embrace new roles and inject a bit of fun into her work. But as you say, it feels like a chapter ending, kind of setting the stage for the emergence of the true wanderer and her decision to embark on the Camino de Santiago.
Yes, exactly. The longing for a long walk in Europe reemerged, initially sparked by something as simple as Google searches, apparently. This coincided with a particularly challenging period in her life, and it's quite moving how she describes a book her daughter brought home from the library as having saved her life. It really highlights the unexpected sources of comfort and inspiration we can find.
Yeah, and the timing of her planned Camino walk also seems significant. Learning that the trail had been unexpectedly closed due to snow the previous year adds a layer of, well, serendipity,
Right.
which she frames through the lens of faith, with the family saying, "Trust in the Lord always." Again, I say rejoice. It's almost as if the path was being cleared for her specifically.
During that difficult period, she vividly conveys a sense of feeling trapped, without options, powerfully quoting Rumi, "Why do you stay in prison when the door is so wide open?"
Powerful.
The immense pressure of juggling work and single motherhood clearly took a significant toll. That quote really speaks to that feeling of being stuck, even when a way out technically exists.
And then a pivotal shift occurred. Her ex-husband unexpectedly offered her time away, and her parents agreed to visit and support her daughter. This confluence of events created the opportunity for her to finally pursue this long-held desire. Setting off to walk 800 kilometers across Spain without perhaps fully grasping the physical and emotional demands of such an undertaking. It underscores how often external support, even in unexpected forms, can enable us to pursue our dreams.
It's truly remarkable how these acts of kindness and support from her family created the space for this transformative journey to begin. And it sounds like the positive interactions she had early on the Camino, especially with some Irishmen she met, played a vital role in building her confidence and solidifying her resolve.
Yeah,
Those early connections can be so important on a long journey, can't they?
absolutely. The Camino experience itself was profoundly impactful. She describes it as a powerful reaffirmation of her identity, a reclaiming of herself as beautiful, accomplished, cherished, and desired. It ignited a renewed sense of adventure and the liberating feeling of embracing uncertainty, not knowing where she would eat or sleep from one day to the next. This letting go of control can be incredibly freeing.
And in a wonderful illustration of how one adventure can spark another, a conversation with a coworker about a similar pilgrimage in Japan, the island of Shikoku, planted the seed for her next journey.
Ah, right.
It was on the Camino, she reflects, that a walking star is born as she discovered her inner poet and began writing snippets along the way. This creative outpouring seems to have been a direct result of the space and time the walk provided.
Completing the Camino in April 2016 was clearly a significant milestone. Challenging, as she knows, but ultimately an incredible experience. She highlights the strong sense of camaraderie among the pilgrims, the breathtaking scenery, the simple pleasures of good food,
Mhm.
and the practical benefit of most people speaking English, which likely eased some of the logistical aspects. It sounds like a journey that fed both her body and her soul.
From the well-trodden paths of the Camino, Natalia then ventured to the far more solitary Shikoku pilgrimage in Japan. Walking alone was a deliberate choice, and she found the solitude to be deeply therapeutic, a real contrast to the more communal nature of the Camino.
Right. It highlights how different forms of pilgrimage can fulfill different needs, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Her daily routine in Japan was quite different, largely dictated by the need to secure lodging each night. This led to a variety of sleeping arrangements, temple grounds, a golf course, even a hotel where she was the only guest.
Wow.
She encountered language barriers that sometimes led to initial refusals, but also experienced unexpected and heartwarming welcomes into private homes. This unpredictability must have been both challenging and, well, rewarding.
She also notes the differences in Japanese sleeping customs, particularly the tradition of low bedding and the strong cultural emphasis on cleanliness. Her hosts often insisted on her taking a bath and would ensure her clothes were drying outside each day. She even shares a humorous travel tip, perhaps learned the hard way about not trying to wash your pants while taking a bath.
Huh, good tip. It's these small, relatable details that really stick with you.
For sure. Food became another central theme of her Shikoku experience. While she found it delicious, it wasn't always readily available when needed, requiring a certain degree of trust and reliance on what would appear.
Yeah.
She observed the local produce oranges, grapefruits, cabbage, daikon, and offered some valuable foodie tips, like being wary of donuts that might turn out to be savory curry,
Oh, right.
and the practical advice of reusing chopsticks. These small cultural insights really add depth to her narrative.
They really do. The distances she covered each day were substantial, often 35 to 50 kilometers.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. Interestingly, due to the language barrier, she preferred to arrive at her accommodations later in the day, maximizing her walking time and minimizing the time spent trying to communicate logistical details. Sounds like she found a rhythm that worked for her in that unique environment.
She mentions her favorite Japanese foods, oranges, ramen, udon, and tempura, and the surprising effect of MSG in some lunch boxes, which actually made her feel sluggish.
Interesting.
It's funny how seemingly small things can impact a long physical journey. She also developed a preference for not carrying a lot of food, operating on a kind of faith that she would find sustenance along the way, though she readily acknowledges the crucial role of coffee in keeping her energy levels up.
Coffee. The walker's friend. Her meal experiences were certainly varied, ranging from satisfying multi-course meals to just like a couple pieces of baklava or even pizza buns on occasion.
Right.
There was even one night where she had no dinner at all after an unexpected detour to a police station. She developed a consistent pre-walk routine centered around personal hygiene and organization, and she found that yogurty drinks were beneficial for digestion and sleep. These routines become anchors, don't they, on such unpredictable journeys?
Absolutely. And despite the inherent solitude of her days on the Shikoku Trail, she maintained a connection to the wider world through a self-imposed social hour each evening, about an hour of social media after dinner before turning in early,
Ah, the modern pilgrim.
often waking to the sounds of the morning call to prayer from nearby mosques. This blend of solitude and connection speaks to a very modern experience of travel.
Following these two significant pilgrimages, Natalia's wanderlust led her to Turkey and the Sufi Trail, which really forms the heart of her book, Coma. The Sufi in me is the Sufi in you.
She describes the book's structure as a choose-your-own-adventure style, which seems to reflect the more spontaneous and less defined nature of this particular journey,
Right, and she mentions that the genesis of this project was actually a Facebook post.
which is a very contemporary starting point for such a deeply personal exploration. And she displays a refreshing sense of self-awareness and humor when talking about her own writing. Even amidst the familiar routines of her daily life in Vancouver, that yearning for travel and those distant, beautiful places remained a constant presence. That never-satisfied hunger for exploration is something many can probably relate to.
Definitely. Her arrival in Istanbul wasn't the straightforward start to a marked trail one might expect. The lack of clear signage led to an unexpected visit to a walled compound, which turned out to be a dervish lodge called the Baharai. This chance encounter seems almost, well, destined.
Indeed. Despite the initial language barrier, she was met with remarkable hospitality at the Baharai, offered coffee and a book. She learned about its historical significance as a center for preserving Sufi traditions, a lineage stretching back to the Ottoman Empire.
Wow.
This unexpected immersion into Sufi culture at the very beginning of her Sufi trail journey is quite striking, don't you think? It's like the trail itself was already guiding her in unexpected ways.
Absolutely. With ambitious plans to walk from Istanbul all the way to Konya, her initial steps were marked by a touching encounter with a young shepherd boy, an interaction she describes as a moment of unexpected chivalry.
Ah,
It highlights those beautiful, fleeting human connections that transcend language and cultural differences.
it's interesting, too, how she contrasts her deep desire for these challenging, often Spartan journeys with her comfortable life in North Vancouver, filled with all the modern conveniences.
Right. Views, conveniences.
Exactly. Despite having a good life, that intrinsic pull towards these walks in faraway lands persisted. It speaks to a deeper need for something beyond the everyday.
It really does. Her approach to packing for the Sufi Trail was decidedly minimalist. She relied on affordable clothing she could easily find in Turkey and her tried-and-true training attire, emphasizing the importance of having the right gear. Kit is key.
Kit is key.
She also intentionally chose to hike in the colder off-seasons, seeking greater solitude on the trails. This preference for walking outside the typical tourist season suggests a deeper focus on the personal journey rather than, external validation.
Her strategy for managing meals on the trail evolved further. Morning coffee became non-negotiable. She often deferred breakfast until lunchtime, and she kept an eye out for local bakeries and fruit trees as her primary sources of sustenance.
Mhm.
She recalls the earlier challenge of afternoon closures in Spain, a logistical detail she hadn't quite mastered initially. This adaptability seems crucial for these kinds of long-distance walks, where you can't always rely on readily available services.
Yeah, you got to roll with it. But there's a recurring theme of faith and trust woven throughout her journey, a belief that her needs would be met. She often quotes Rumi, and the sentiment, "the lion is most handsome when looking for food," seems to capture this idea of trusting in the process.
Hmm.
Her pre-walk routine became even more refined before embarking on the Sufi Trail, suggesting a growing understanding of what she needed to sustain herself.
Early on in Turkey, she experienced the kindness of strangers firsthand with an offer of free coffee in a small village. She also recounts a humorous, determined effort to reach a single, perfect fig hanging from a high branch.
Huh, love that.
These small anecdotes really humanize her experience and show her engaging with the local environment in a very immediate way.
Navigation on the Sufi Trail, though, proved to be a significant and ongoing challenge. Despite receiving some tech help with a map from her friend Iris, she often found herself disoriented.
Right, maps aren't always the answer.
Exactly. Eventually, she relied more heavily on a village-to-village list that Iris had compiled, embracing a more traditional, almost pre-digital approach to finding her way. It highlights the limitations of technology when you're truly immersed in an unfamiliar environment.
Her interactions with the local people were incredibly diverse. She describes encounters with women sharing gossip on a bench, curious schoolboys on bicycles, many of whom, like others she met, suggested the more direct route of the highway.
Always the highway.
These brief interactions offer glimpses into the daily life of the community she passed through.
Interestingly, without actively seeking it, she gained some unexpected online attention through a connection her friend Sadat had with a journalist.
Oh, really?
Yeah. This illustrates how even solitary journeys can resonate with a wider audience and how our stories can unexpectedly find their way into the world.
There's a particularly heartwarming story of her searching for someone named Elif in a village tea shop based on a simple message. The incredible kindness of the tea house server, offering her tea and bread even though it was during her fast,
Wow.
really stands out as an example of human generosity.
An unplanned and challenging walk with some new acquaintances in a city unexpectedly led to a hotel stay and the generosity of a man named Aaron. However, not all her interactions were so positive. She recounts a frustrating experience with a hotel front desk agent who offered unhelpful directions.
The reality of travel, right?
Exactly. It
Yeah.
reminds us that travel involves navigating a whole spectrum of human interactions.
Even her encounters with the local police were a mix of concern and perhaps a bit of bewilderment. They repeatedly suggested she take the bus,
Just take the bus.
and even tried to connect her with an English-speaking teacher. Yet her determination to continue on foot remained unwavering. This insistence on walking seems to be a core part of her experience.
Definitely. One memorable encounter involved a farmer who even offered her money to take the bus, an offer she politely declined, learning a valuable lesson about potential cultural misunderstandings in the process.
Ah,
Her deep commitment to walking authentically, relying on her own instincts and God-given wits rather than GPS or detailed maps, is a central theme of this part of her journey. It speaks to a desire for a more direct and perhaps more challenging connection with the land and the people.
she explicitly states her desire to redefine the typical image of a Western tourist, suggesting a deeper motivation beyond just seeing the sights. However, her journey wasn't without moments of potential danger. She recounts a previous unsettling encounter that left her feeling vulnerable and required her to retrace her steps.
Right. It reminds us that solo travel, especially for women, can carry inherent risks.
Definitely. Despite these challenges, she found moments of profound beauty and insight in unexpected places, like capturing a photograph of a spider web, leading her to trust in a larger, unseen plan.
Hmm.
Her observation that she prefers appetizers over the main course becomes a lovely metaphor for her inherent love of exploration, change, and perhaps the initial stages of discovery.
I like that. Her dining experiences in Turkey were certainly varied and offered glimpses into different ways of life. She describes a restaurant with unelectrified meat
Oh, wow.
and notes the different food storage practices she observed, like eggs on counters.
Hmm.
There's also a rather awkward yet relatable anecdote about an uncomfortable dinner with a driver who watched her wrap leftover chicken in tissue,
Ah, been there.
and a delightful mention of the simple pleasure of cheese with pistachio. These small details paint such a vivid picture of her daily life on the trail.
She also paid attention to the nuances of local customs, observing the formal and informal greetings she encountered, forehead touching, forearm grasping among men, multiple hugs between women. A young child kissing her hand and then touching it to their forehead is a particularly touching gesture.
Mhm.
Witnessing the traditional method of making coffee over a wood fire at a construction site is another great example of her immersion in local culture.
The warmth and hospitality she experienced in Turkish homes is a recurring and heartwarming aspect of her journey. She describes being welcomed into homes with wood-burning stoves, offered slippers, sharing meals around low tables with cushions, always accompanied by tea and sweets after dinner.
Sounds lovely.
She even noticed similarities between the culinary traditions of Romania, Iran, and Turkey,
Yeah.
highlighting those shared threads of human culture.
Her practical point, pay, and eat system for obtaining food allowed her to enjoy simple, local dishes like string bean stew. And there's a humorous anecdote involving a misunderstanding with a man named Ibrahim about the difference between being angry and hungry,
Huh. Angry versus hungry.
the universal experience when navigating language barriers.
Totally. She observed that many towns seem to shut down quite early in the evening, around 7 p.m., and she recounts walking through a village heavily trafficked by cows, complete with manure on the streets,
Oh boy.
an experience that also led to a charming encounter with two little girls. She was even offered a place to sleep by someone she had just met on the road, sharing a simple meal from a single bowl, just a testament to the generosity of strangers.
However, not all encounters were positive, as she shares an uncomfortable experience with a hotel worker who knocked on her door late at night after she had indicated she wanted to sleep.
Not good.
And a rather bizarre breakfast experience at a portable office behind a hotel added to the unpredictable nature of her days. These less idyllic moments remind us of the realities of solo travel.
Definitely. Continuing her walk towards the town of Say, she was repeatedly offered rides by passing motorists, a common experience for pedestrians in rural areas. She also had the unexpected pleasure of discovering an abandoned orchard filled with ripe apples.
Nice find.
Seeking directions at a deserted bus station, she resorted to playing Sufi trail on a local woman's phone to communicate her purpose. These small interactions highlight her resourcefulness.
The sight of snow-covered mountains initially filled her with frustration, but she adapted by seeking out smaller roads for easier navigation. She even started identifying new municipalities by the stamps on their garbage containers.
Huh, that's a unique way.
A unique and practical way of tracking her progress. The unexpected kindness of bakery owners, Muhammad and Ali, who offered her baklava when she was particularly hungry, was a welcome boost.
After one overnight stop, she realized she needed to backtrack a significant 30 kilometers.
Oh.
Fortunately, she was offered a ride in a minibus, and the driver refused to accept any payment. Despite her initial doubts about the trail markings seemingly going backwards, she learned to accept these unexpected acts of generosity.
Yeah.
This highlights the element of surrendering to the flow of the journey, right?
Absolutely. Her friend Felix offered a perceptive warning about the potential for getting addicted to pain and suffering on such demanding journeys.
Hmm, interesting point.
Yet, despite the obvious physical challenges, Natalia clearly found a deep sense of joy and vitality in these long walks. It seems the challenges themselves contributed to her sense of accomplishment and well-being.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm.
She often felt like an outsider, observing life from the periphery, until she was invited in for tea, relying on her intuition to connect with kindred spirits along the way.
Hmm.
Music played a significant role in keeping her going, with various songs becoming personal marching anthems that accompanied her physical and emotional journey.
What kind of music?
Well, she mentions a diverse range, from Whitney Houston's Never Walk in Anyone's Shadow
Classic.
to Neil Young's unknown legend Whitesnake's Here I Go Again on My Own,
Yeah.
alongside a cherished family hymn, Father, I Adore You. She even reflects on how all language, including music, can be seen as a form of constant prayer. Interestingly, she found herself singing songs of Christ, despite consciously trying to distance herself from organized religion in her past. It seems these deeply ingrained parts of her identity resurfaced during moments of solitude.
Her children were aware of her past struggles with sadness, and she had a deep desire to show them a life filled with joy, freedom, and boundless possibilities. Her daughter's comment about finally hearing her laugh again after a long period of sadness is particularly poignant.
Oh, that's powerful.
It speaks to the transformative power of these journeys, not just for Natalia, but for her family as well.
Rumi's powerful quote, "What hurts you blesses you. Darkness is your candle," seems to resonate deeply with her experiences. She reflects on celebrating a significant milestone of 25 years of sobriety,
That's amazing.
but also acknowledges a wistful longing for the less inhibited days of her youth. This honesty and vulnerability are compelling.
Her deep-seated commitment to certain values is evident in her participation in the 2010 Vancouver Olympics torch run, where she championed environmental consciousness and a zero-waste policy. She even admits to being somewhat confrontational about wastefulness at times, alongside a humorous acknowledgement of her own hypocrisy regarding longer showers.
Huh. We've all got those contradictions.
It shows that we are all works in progress, right? Even when we hold strong beliefs.
Her reflections on society's relationship with food are thought-provoking, comparing humans to machines focused primarily on consumption. Her personal philosophy centers on mindful eating in the present moment, while also acknowledging the role of emotional eating in her own life. This introspective look at her own habits adds another layer of depth.
She also shares observations on the increasing awareness of food allergies and the changing attitudes within the restaurant industry. There's a humorous anecdote about a guest with a nut allergy who seemingly disregarded their own restrictions,
Oh, no.
which highlights the complexities and occasional absurdities around food sensitivities.
Learning that buses in Turkey sometimes offer refreshments led to a funny mental image of her jokingly requesting, like, 14 coffees.
Might as well ask.
She also mentions frequently taking buses back to a previous location to continue her walk, highlighting the pragmatic side of her journey. It wasn't always purely about walking every single step.
Right, sometimes logistics take over. An unexpected encounter with a mini cacti plantation resulted in a rather painful irritation.
Ouch.
A reminder of the less glamorous aspects of being out in nature. She also solved a small mystery about the bits of corn she kept seeing on the highway, realizing it was spilled chicken feed from passing trucks.
Ah, the little details.
Her curiosity even extended to the bullet holes she noticed in road signs, later learning they were from hunters and starting to collect the spent shotgun shells as unusual souvenirs. It's these small observations that make her narrative so engaging.
They really do. She recounts the somewhat eerie experience of walking through completely empty towns and villages, often observed by the few locals who were around. A near miss with a high mountain pass after misjudging the snow levels.
Yeah.
And her continued reliance on garbage container stamps to identify municipalities underscore the challenges of navigating unfamiliar terrain.
Encounters with aggressive dogs in one town prompted a swift retreat and a quick search for directions to the nearest highway.
Smart move.
She also developed a strategy of using tractor paths as unofficial trails to navigate mountainous areas. Getting temporarily lost near a highway intersection led to a welcome discovery of a brightly lit bakery, a small oasis of help. These moments of vulnerability and resourcefulness are a key part of her
Mom, this
story.
one's for
Her
you.
friend's perspective on
This
her
is
frequent
the
photo posting that
day,
she was
this
bringing the
is the
world to those who
day
can't
that the
travel
Lord
offers a
has
beautiful
made,
rationale for
that the
sharing her
Lord
experiences.
has
Nice.
made.
Natalia
We
herself
will
expresses a
be
deep belief that
glad and
everyone's
rejoice
individual path is
in
unique,
it.
and that
This
sharing these
is
stories can
the
offer comfort and
day,
connection to
this
others who
is
might
the
be facing
day
their
that
own
the
silent struggles.
Lord
This sense of shared humanity
has
seems to be a strong motivator for her.
In one
made.
particularly memorable and
I love
slightly
you.
unsettling
Take
experience,
care.
she was taken to
Speedy
a police station
recovery.
despite
All the
having done
best.
nothing wrong.
To
She
my brothers
recounts
and
maintaining a
sisters, I love
calm
you
demeanor
too.
during the questioning, while the officers were understandably curious about her unusual journey. The unit commander even asked her about fear, to which she responded with a declaration of faith. It's a testament to her inner strength and resilience in the face of the unknown.
Wow. And in a further act of unexpected kindness, she was eventually driven to her accommodation by the staff sergeant.
Ah,
On one particularly challenging day, her sustenance was limited to just tea, coffee, and a few apples, with a single tangerine from Istanbul serving as a poignant reminder of her starting point. These dark moments highlight the physical demands of her journey.
she encountered concerned construction workers and a father and son who both expressed worry about her walking alone, underscoring the protective instincts of the people she met. She also experienced incredible hospitality from a couple who offered her a snack and even lit a fire in her room to warm it up.
Lovely.
These acts of genuine care from strangers must have been incredibly heartening.
She describes a feeling of being like a soldier marching around Jericho, her emotional walls gradually coming down through these experiences, the somewhat comical situation of repeatedly ending up back in the same town.
Oh no, again.
Being told there were no hotels and becoming the subject of observation at the local tea shop adds a touch of lightheartedness to her challenges.
Seeking assistance from municipal workers eventually led to a taxi ride to find accommodation, highlighting the times when she did need to rely on external help. She reflects on the interesting dynamic of finding it easier to ask for help from strangers than from some of her own friends.
That's
A
interesting.
thought-provoking observation about human connection.
One particularly touching act of generosity involved a driver who actually took out his own ATM money to buy her dinner,
Wow.
teaching her a valuable lesson about setting aside pride and accepting help when it's offered. She was later dropped off at a very basic Soviet-style hotel with no Wi-Fi or food, but even there, she found a clerk willing to share his personal hotspot. It's these small acts of human connection that shine through.
Her friend Iris continued to be a source of support, arranging a driver for the next morning, although Natalia had an intuitive feeling that the plans might change.
Trusting her gut.
Making her own makeshift iced coffee in the empty hotel kitchen, she indeed found herself waiting for a driver who never appeared. This reliance on her own instincts and the unexpected turns of events seemed to be integral to her journey.
Through these experiences, Natalia developed a strong belief in a form of divine guidance, seeing her path as being guided by a larger force, drawing a parallel to the spiritual quest of Saul, who became Paul.
Ah, interesting parallel.
She viewed the ancient way of St. James as a testament to humanity's enduring search for truth and meaning. This spiritual dimension is clearly a central aspect of her motivation.
While acknowledging her own privilege of health and relative wealth, she's also clear that her long walks are far from easy and require significant mental and physical fortitude. Faith, in its broadest sense, clearly plays a crucial role in sustaining her through the challenges.
Yeah, you can feel that.
She recounts her humorous responses to colleagues who jokingly asked if she was walking for a living, emphasizing her deep gratitude for her physical abilities.
Right.
Her equally witty answers when asked about her children, reassuring them that they were at home with food and money and could Google anything else they needed,
Right.
offer a glimpse into her independent spirit and trust in her children's resilience. She also clarifies that their father lived nearby and provided care during her travels, addressing potential concerns about her parenting choices.
She firmly defends her personal choices and her pursuit of her own happiness, highlighting the diversity of Christian beliefs within her large family and emphasizing the importance of personal interpretation and experience. Her reflections on the idea that heaven is a state of readiness, and her reference to Rumi's wisdom about finding comfort even in one's own plot of hell, speak to a very personal and nuanced understanding of spirituality. Ultimately, she believes that the path to seeking light is a deeply individual one, regardless of how faith is practiced outwardly.
Her all-or-nothing personality is humorously illustrated by a story of taking an entire piece of bread from a shared basket.
Oh, dear.
She describes finding a profound sense of solitude and connection to her soul in the simple act of walking, with the ground beneath her feet and the sun as her constant companions. This grounding in the physical world seems to be a key to her inner journey.
She persevered through long distances, often driven by the need to find shelter, with the green light of a distant mosque often serving as a guiding beacon in the darkness. Her encounters with stray dogs led to a noticeable increase in her walking speed.
Understandable.
A sarcastic cheerio to a police officer helped her avoid an unwanted escort, leading to a humorous interaction with a young officer who found her situation quite amusing. These moments of levity are important amidst the more serious reflections.
One of the most heartwarming stories involves her being spontaneously welcomed into a family's home for dinner, unannounced and uninvited.
Wow, really?
Their incredible hospitality and immediate acceptance, despite the language barrier, is truly touching. She recounts explaining her journey through limited Turkish and gestures, the father recognizing her friend Sadat's contact information.
Ah, the connection.
Although she politely declined to stay the night, she asked if she could wash her clothes, a request the family readily understood through pantomime. Sharing her camera roll with them led to amusement at seeing her normal appearance compared to her current trail-worn state.
I bet.
The mother's playful antics and the family's shared laughter created a beautiful moment of human connection.
The journey to the next city involved a slow, noisy ride in a car with a dragging muffler, culminating in a late-night conversation with the driver about local rumors and even spies in Turkey.
Spies, okay?
Reflecting on completing a portion of the trail by bus later on, she notes the stark contrast to the preceding 19 days of walking, highlighting the different pace and experience.
Moments of anxiety about being lost were often reinterpreted by Natalia as divine intervention, suggesting a perspective that even challenges were part of a larger plan.
Mhm.
She describes a gradual shift in her focus from solely prioritizing her children's needs to a more balanced approach, recognizing their father's capable care and fostering their independence. This evolution in her role as a mother seems to have been influenced by her travels.
She humorously recalls her past as a whiner during strenuous excursions in Army cadets,
Oh.
recognizing those foundational experiences despite her youthful complaints. Now, her long solitary marches are accompanied by her own singing, helping her maintain a steady pace. It's interesting how past experiences, even negative ones, can shape us in unexpected ways.
Definitely. She acknowledges the valuable life lessons she absorbed from her time in the military: discipline, tenacity, and the power of mind over matter. Her practical and symbolic use of a colorful shoelace as a belt, and her appreciation for her reliable hiking gear, especially her blue windbreaker and quick-drying pants, are small but telling details.
Kit is key. And the importance of good merino wool socks is emphasized her secret to avoiding blisters despite long days in tight shoes,
Ah, the holy grail for hikers.
along with her flip-flop socks for nighttime comfort. She also shares a memorable quote. You know you're the most beautiful woman in the room when you're the only woman in the room, which speaks volumes about her self-reliance and inner confidence.
Despite her extensive travels in Turkey, she only learned a few basic Turkish words, relying more on universal gestures like salam alaikum, accompanied by placing her right hand over her heart.
Gestures go a long way.
The experience of being lost, while sometimes frustrating, often led to unexpected and interesting situations, reinforcing her trust that all roads lead to Konya. She even used the call to prayer and the sound of car tires as navigational aids, humorously admitting that she and traditional maps were never a good match.
Her deep gratitude for her friends Iris and Sadat, whom she affectionately refers to as her guardian angels, is evident throughout her narrative. She describes feeling a strong sense of the presence of God during her solitary walks, finding a spiritual connection in the act of movement and the vastness of the landscape.
She learned to embrace the kindness of strangers without hesitation, saying yes to offers of food and accommodation. Even when she arrived soaked and muddy, she was welcomed into homes, offered dry clothes and warmth.
Amazing hospitality.
There were even times when accepting a ride felt like the right, albeit unexpected, turn in her journey.
Asking a police officer for directions one early morning led to an unexpected bus ride where the driver refused payment. The familiar experience of sometimes walking back in the direction she had come is a relatable anecdote for anyone who has navigated without perfect guidance.
Oh yeah, been there.
Challenging stretches of walking on highways with no shoulder required her to create her own path, and even then, she sometimes found herself back where she started.
The circular journey.
She vividly describes the eerie beauty of walking in dense fog, Her personal preferences emerged even in simple things like coffee. She developed a strong dislike for Nescafe and overly sweet Turkish coffee, her joy palpable when she finally found a proper latte with latte art.
Ah, the simple pleasures.
A spontaneous decision to explore caves near Konya led to a moment of fleeting paranoia near some army structures, quickly replaced by the calming sight of numerous mosques dotting the landscape. Arriving in Konya, her intended destination, she discovered she was at the wrong hotel.
Of course, it highlights the frequent disconnect between plans and reality on such a journey.
Exactly. In a final act of incredible generosity, the hotel manager, Ali, offered her spending money when she realized she had no local currency.
No way.
This profound kindness deeply moved her and reinforced her sense of gratitude and belief in the inherent goodness of people. It underscores the importance of both giving and receiving with an open heart.
The importance of accepting hospitality and truly living in the present moment became clear lessons from her journey. She recognized the fundamental interconnectedness of humanity and the universal desire for acceptance and love. Always mindful of cultural sensitivities, she made sure to ask permission before posting photos online, appreciating the positive impact these shared moments could have. Even when she felt like giving up, the appearance of a rainbow offered a moment of renewed hope.
Ultimately, Natalia found what she believes is her life's work in these spiritual sport quests, drawing a compelling parallel between her walking and the meditative practices of the Buddha and Sufi dervishes.
Interesting comparison.
The deep peace and fulfillment she discovers in these solitary walks are clearly driven by a profound internal longing. She even suggests a sense of predestination in her path as a Sufi trail wanderer, seeing an invisible thread connecting her various experiences.
She expresses deep gratitude for having overcome a challenging past. Her journey has led her to understand that while we are all pilgrims on our own paths, the inner light that guides us burns uniquely for each of us.
Well said.
She emphasizes the importance of persevering in our quests and being open to finding a new mission if our old one no longer serves us. The central realization for her is that it is the journey, not the destination. All roads lead to Konya.
Her concluding thoughts beautifully encapsulate her experience. I've walked freely through history. What did I find? You may ask yourself, noisier than I. Empires of legends have all left their mark here. Fundamentally, we are all from the farm. Ruminate on that, all of us. By the grace and Han of God, I walked in my dream in Turkey and came home to sleep in my bed in Vancouver, Coma.
Wow, that return to the fundamental connection to the land is a powerful final image.
It really is. With characteristic humor, she downplays being called brave for walking alone in winter, quipping, I said stupid, but it amounts to the same thing. And a final, relatable piece of advice. Avoid writing down profound trail thoughts next to someone who is enthusiastically eating crunchy chips.
Oh, the worst.
Her closing is a simple yet heartfelt offering. A slight bow, a smile from her heart to yours, and salam alaikum, dedicating her work to Iris and Sadat, her steadfast guardian angels.
So for you, our listener, Natalia's remarkable journeys, both across vast landscapes and deep within herself, powerfully illustrate themes of incredible resilience, unwavering faith in the face of uncertainty, the profound impact of unexpected kindness from strangers, and the deep transformative insights that can be gained by stepping far outside the boundaries of our familiar comfort zones. You vicariously experienced the challenges, the moments of breathtaking beauty, the surprising encounters, and the significant internal shifts that marked her extraordinary walks.
Yeah, absolutely. Natalia concludes her book with that really resonant statement. Fundamentally, we are all from the farm. Ruminate on that. And so we pose that to you. What does that seemingly simple phrase mean in the context of her complex and inspiring experiences, and how does it resonate within the framework of your own life's journey? It's a thought worth holding on to.
Definitely. If Natalia's story has deeply connected with you and you're eager to explore her experiences in even greater detail, her book, Coma, The Sufi in Me is the Sufi in You, is readily available. Her narrative serves as a powerful and inspiring invitation to reflect on your own long walks of life, both literal and metaphorical, and the unexpected wisdom and beauty they might hold.